Hey, Firefly. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Wherever you're listening, wherever you are, welcome home. Welcome to Nowhere Else, the place where we stop running and start reclaiming the life we actually want, because there is nowhere else to go. I'm Dana Jean, DJ, your conductor, and acting big sister for this conversation. And today, we're going to be diving into the love-hate relationship with food I've experienced over the years and how my forced vacation, if you want to call it that, last summer, forced me to do a complete 180. So, without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? All right. The reason that I wanted to talk about this today is because food has become such a huge part of my recovery, specifically the ability to nourish my body properly has impacted my life in ways that I took for granted before. Let's just say that. I took them for granted. I've been an athlete my entire life, and I've talked about this before in other episodes. I used to just eat whatever I want. I never had to consider what I was eating, and now that I have transitioned to gluten and dairy-free, because of health reasons, I had literally no other choice. My relationship with food has gone on quite the roller coaster over the years. So we're going to talk about it today. I basically just used to eat everything. I used to never need to consider what I was eating. The only things that I would not eat were peanut butter and bananas. And I know that they go together and that people love them, but peanut butter I still cannot. I have been experimenting with baking with bananas. I'm still not a fan. I'm not a fan, and I'm not going to try that hard, to be honest, because there are plenty of other fruits that I love that I don't need to have a banana for. Anyways, I remember growing up and always feeling like I was bigger, and that's actually really sad because looking back at photos of myself, I'm like, I'll never be that small again. But I was always tall. I was always the tallest in the class, the tallest girl. I'm pretty muscular, I would say. Not to pat myself on the back or anything, but I do have a pretty athletic build, and I don't know, it's just not fun when all the boys are 5 feet tall and short and you're an Amazon. And I always felt bigger, and all my friends were 5 feet tall or 5'2" and smaller. And I don't know, I always felt bigger. But I remember learning about eating disorders and everything when I was, in middle school and high school, when you learn about them. And I had a few people that I was friends with who I knew were struggling with eating disorders as I went through middle school and high school. But I never considered myself to have an eating disorder, and I definitely don't think that I did in high school. I would say that when I got to college, that is when more disordered eating came into play, because I just became abundantly aware of what I was eating and how much I was eating. I mean, everybody always jokes and talks about the freshman 15 and is worried about that. I remember when we first started freshman year, my roommate and I, we were talking about that a lot. And at the time, I don't even know how long they sold these for. I don't think they lasted very long, but there were low calorie hard seltzers that you could buy, so they were 70 calories. They also had less alcohol in them, and I remember that's what we had initially, because it was oh, don't want to get the freshman 15, don't want to be, and I was all right. So I don't even really think I was that aware of it, or I don't think that I let it influence me that much. After COVID happened my freshman year and we went back for sophomore year, I was way more into fitness. I remember freshman year, I think I went to the gym once. To be fair, the year ended and in March, but I quite literally went to the gym on campus one time, which is actually absurd to think about because I think every other year after that I was there too much. So sophomore year was much more into going to the gym and maintaining that. My roommate was also very into going to the gym, exercising, and taking care of ourselves and taking care of our bodies. I say that whilst also, hold on, this is actually very important. This is important to say because this is, I don't know if you would categorize this as an eating disorder or what, but it's definitely not healthy. Because I've always had such a high tolerance for alcohol, I knew that, well, if I want to lose weight, then I need to be in a calorie deficit. And if I want to be in a calorie deficit, then that means I have to be working out a lot more than I'm consuming for food, which that's like, I don't know. When you do it and you have no guidance and you don't know what you're doing, I think that that's where people run into trouble a lot. I was obsessed with my Apple Watch. You'll notice I do not have an Apple Watch anymore, but I was obsessed with my Apple Watch. I was obsessed with closing all my rings. All of my friends were. We were all like obsessed, would wear it religiously. We would compete with each other. It was a lot. I also had heart issues that I was dealing with at this time, so really I don't know why the focus was so heavy on the exercise. I was just in the mindset of, well, I'm going to exercise all day, get all my steps in, get my workout in, and then I can just binge drink a lot because, and that was the thing, I was not worried about the calories that I would be getting from the alcohol because I knew that I was burning like however many I was in a day. It was honestly a lot. I definitely still have some screenshots and some pictures. I'll have to find them. If I do find them, I will post them on my story just to compare because the calorie count, some days it was a lot. Some days it was a lot and I could tell you that I was not consuming enough food. And the other issue with that too is that when you do that, you're not maintaining muscle, you're losing it. And I was losing it, but I felt good. I felt skinny. Then I got into a relationship my junior year. And it all went downhill from there. No, I'm just kidding. But like, not really. And that's a me issue. Don't put your value in any type of relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or a relationship with your family. Do not put your own value into that because you'll lose yourself in it. So don't do it. Yeah, listen to me. I apologize for the birds. Also, this is not sponsored, but I'm going to be talking about this brand and the founders of this brand. It's not sponsored, but Junie, if you'd like to pay me to talk about your products, I'm all ears. Please, by all means. Or if you just want to send me some more, because Whole Foods, it said that this was last chance and they were discounted at $1.79. So that's concerning because it's my favorite flavor. Please send me the rest of your inventory. Thank you. And moving on now. Okay. Before I got into that relationship, I was still obsessed with exercising, obsessed with my nutrition, obsessed with all of that. I did start working with a coach briefly, somebody who I had gone to school with, I was working with, and then I felt like I wanted a little bit more structure. So my junior year, after I got into a relationship and started to not prioritize myself anymore. Also, I got mono, so I got super sick junior year, like fall of junior year, but I also just stopped taking care of my priorities. So yeah, don't do that. It's embarrassing, honestly. It's embarrassing when you do that. Take it from me. At least, no, it's embarrassing when you do that. So then I started working with another coach, and then I worked with her for probably 6 months, and then I stopped working with her, and then went through senior year. I felt pretty good as far as like my programming, what I need to do in the gym. It was more of just the consistency and the discipline around it because I didn't have that with the food. My relationship with alcohol was still very heavy. After I graduated college, I believe I alluded to this before, probably like June. I graduated second week of May, and then probably June 2nd, maybe, I want to say, I got super, super, super sick. I don't know what triggered it. I am going to talk about my breast reduction in another episode. It'll actually be the next one. But it's important to know that the recovery process for that was long. So for the first 6 months, I couldn't do a lot of upper body lifts, which is unfortunate because that's my favorite. Shoulders is my favorite. But I couldn't do any upper body lifts. And then early June, I got like super, super sick. I got really, really sick. I didn't know why. I was so fatigued. I honestly thought I had mono again, to be honest. Gained 30 pounds out of nowhere. I didn't change anything that I was doing as far as exercise or eating or my routine. I literally didn't even leave school yet. I was still in my house off campus and working on campus. I was so confused. I had no energy. I wanted to work out because I felt bad about myself because I was gaining so much weight. So I was like, I need to exercise and move my body. And I was so fatigued trying to get through the workouts. I've never felt like that in my life. I was like, what is happening to me? It was really, really difficult. And also, in addition to that, every single thing I ate, anything I ate, I could not keep it down. It was coming out one way and it wasn't going to be pretty and it wasn't going to be comfortable. So I was like, what is going on? Something has to change. That probably went on of me feeling like that for 2.5 months. Probably August is when I started to feel better, but that's because I cut out gluten and dairy. I didn't do both completely, but I was eating a lot less gluten. I kind of went back and forth because I was like, I can't do both. I can't do both. It's not fair. It's too much. I don't want to do it. So I was like, I'll just do dairy. And I would switch for like a couple weeks and do no gluten. And then I was still not feeling well. So I was like, okay, I guess the only way that this is going to work is if I just completely say, okay, no more gluten, no more dairy, and just see how we feel. And I did that officially in September after I did an upper endoscopy, which, for those who don't know, the only way that you can be diagnosed with celiac, which means that you cannot have any cross-contamination when it comes to gluten, and that's an actual autoimmune disease. I have to explain this to people all the time. Celiac is not the same as being lactose intolerant in the sense of if you are lactose intolerant and you choose to eat a piece of cheese and you have diarrhea or you feel really sick afterwards, you might feel really lousy, but that is not how gluten is going to impact your body. When you have celiac disease, it's an autoimmune disease. The cilia is the protective layer around the cells in your nervous system. So every time you eat gluten, it strips the cilia off of the cell and it strips off that protective layer. So it sounds really dramatic, but you're essentially slowly killing yourself every time you eat gluten and you have celiac because you're literally killing off your cells. So I have the gene, obviously, for celiac, but they told me it wasn't active, and they told me that what that meant was it could become active in 5 days, or 5 months, 5 years, or never. And I didn't know where I was on that threshold. So let's say to have celiac, you need to pass like this line, and let's say I'm like right here. I have no idea where I am to crossing that line. I was having horrible symptoms for months and months. I was like, you know what? I watched my mom go through this because my mom has celiac, and she wasn't diagnosed until her 40s or late 30s. And I was like, if I can avoid having an autoimmune disease, I'd prefer that. So I'm just not going to eat it anymore. Then I did the upper endoscopy because that is the only test that can diagnose you officially if you have celiac. I did the upper endoscopy. That means I was unconscious, like out. They were inside of me with a camera and like a little clipper thing, I don't know. Looked around and said, you know what? I don't know, but let's call it a day and break for lunch and wake the kid up. And then they did. And then they told me, Your results were inconclusive, but there's no need for further testing. What? What are you talking? What? So, as infuriating as that was, they then told me that I would need to eat more gluten again for the next month, like a lot of gluten for the next month, and then do it again. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this because it makes me feel like shit, and I don't want to be unable to operate for the next month. So, yeah. No more gluten and no more dairy. And I officially did that September of 2023, which is wild to think about that because now it's June of 2026. So it's been almost 3 years, which is insane to think about. Do I miss it? There are some meals that I see go past me sometimes in restaurants, and I'm like, it's not even that like I miss it, to be honest. It was really, really, really a difficult adjustment at first, but once you transition and make the swaps and make the changes, it's really not that bad. It just takes some getting used to. I would say the hardest part about being someone that has a lot of dietary restrictions now, because I just treat it as if I do have celiac, because my mom has celiac, and it infuriates me when we go places and they're like, well, is it an allergy or a preference? And I'm like, if I literally said I had a peanut allergy, you wouldn't be like, is it an allergy or a preference? You would just be like, okay, great, I'll let them know. Like, why do you have to ask more questions? I don't know. It bothers me because it makes me feel like they're not taking it as seriously as they should. Maybe that's just me projecting, but that's how I feel in the moment when they ask about it. So I just treat it as if I do have celiac, and I eat everything is gluten-free. We have our own utensils and our own things in the house. I would say that the hardest part is the social aspects of it, because it's just not easy. Thank God I did not have to deal with this in college. I genuinely do not know how I would have handled this in college, because I don't even know what the options were, to be honest, in the dining hall. I don't know what I would have eaten. Probably red lentil pasta every single day. I think that was the only allergy-free, allergy-friendly thing that they had. They literally served the same pasta every single day and a vegetable. Like, that's not, yeah. I don't know what I would have eaten, honestly. So thankfully I didn't have to go through that while I was in college, but I'm very, very glad that I made the changes that I did when I did. I should also say that I never would have made these changes had my body not hit its breaking point and forced me into it, because I had no other option. There was no other way. Once I officially went gluten-free and came home and started really prioritizing my fitness, my food, all of that, things started to change. I did start working my full-time job, and that impacted eating too, because obviously what I did was mostly in the bar and restaurant scene, and bar food's not the most gluten friendly, so it was a struggle sometimes. But I also was still eating animal protein, so I was fine as long as I could find a clean piece of fish or something that just didn't have sauce or seasonings on it, because most times soy sauce, barbecue sauce, the sauces are sneaky. That's where they get you. Or the glaze, like that has gluten in it. I think it's unnecessary, but I'm not the chef at those establishments, so yeah, it was a little difficult. And then once I finally got into the swing of things at work, I just kind of had the mentality of, well, I have to get up early for work, so I'll bring this Aloha bar or Go Macro bar. Like, I would just take like a little breakfast bar in the morning. That would be my breakfast. Then I would work through lunch if I could, because normally you eat lunch at the accounts, but like I just said, it wasn't the easiest thing for me to do that all the time. Sometimes it was, like, if I could go to Tavern in the Square, or, you know, someplace that I knew had marked menu items that I could get, or dedicated kitchen spaces that I felt good about, then I would, but that wasn't very often. And oftentimes I would just try to work through lunch and then just come home. But then sometimes I wouldn't be eating a real meal or substantial food other than that granola bar or that breakfast bar, and then like fruit snacks. Literally, I would have fruit snacks, fruit rolls, that type of things. There were 2 brands that I really liked. One of them was Solely. That's the one I still really, really like, and I honestly can't remember the other one off the top of my head right now. It's the one with like the bears on it, though. You know what I'm talking about. If you know, then you know. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't eat anything other than a breakfast bar and fruit snacks until like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. I'm not kidding. You guys. From my heaviest weigh-in, like heaviest, when I was feeling so sick and like so low, to the lightest point that I got to, I literally lost 52 pounds. Now, I should point out that that's a lot of weight. That's a lot to lose. I lost a lot of muscle, as I said, and yeah, it was a lot. I don't necessarily think it was sustainable because, mind you, I was literally only eating like a granola bar or something to that effect. Something that was basically 120 calories. That was my fuel for the day, and then I would have 90-calorie fruit snacks. That's what I was eating. And then it got to the point where I was like, I've lost so much muscle and I'm so skinny and toned and yay, look at me. But I have no muscle and I want muscle and energy and to be athletic again, because I was getting super into running and going on a walk every single day, which is good. A lot of the changes that I made in my habits and my health journey, I don't necessarily think were bad decisions. I don't think it was a bad thing to go for a walk every single day or a run. I don't think that was bad. I think that was good exercise for me, and I loved the discipline behind it. However, I think doing so much cardio and not mixing in enough strength training and not prioritizing things like protein and fiber is where you start to wither away a little bit. And I was definitely starting to wither away a little bit. I got some Ozempic allegations, which is crazy. That's crazy. I was also never, I should point out, when I graduated, I gained a lot of weight. But before that, I was never huge, despite what I thought. Looking back at photos, I was definitely more inflamed and more bloated and more swollen, but I was also literally drinking like 16 drinks in a night sometimes. So you do carry weight differently when there's alcohol in your system and when there isn't. And the no drinking, cardio all the time definitely stripped back quite a few layers of fat. But I would not say that the relationship I had with food at that point was a healthy one in any way. Then the trouble, what I found happened is my stomach got much smaller. My appetite was much smaller. I also think a lot of that was influenced from the gluten and the dairy, just eating less naturally. But my body just got so used to not really eating a lot. Yeah, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. But that's true. There are so many rules when it comes to food that I was so overwhelmed, and I think that's why I struggled so much, because I didn't know what the right answer was. You see all these girls being like, you need to be in a calorie deficit, you need to be doing blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do I do? When really everybody's journey is so different and unique to them, and you really should focus on what makes you feel good. I'm actually not kidding. My whole diet consisted of Aloha bars, mango habanero beef jerky, and solely fruit jerky or fruit snacks. That's literally all I would eat in a day. And then I'd come home and eat dinner, whatever my dad made. So yeah, not good. Not good. Then I started focusing more on whole foods, but I would still eat way too much beef jerky and Aloha bars. But also that was an easy fix for me whenever I was traveling for work and needed fuel. I would literally have to go back to my room after meetings before we went out for whatever we were doing and eat my dinner, and it was beef jerky in my room because I couldn't eat anything else and I needed the protein. I was afraid of